After using and testing the 15-inch MacBook Air for over a month, I have to say that it is one of my favorite laptops ever. So why in the world is Apple having such a hard time selling them with volumes being half of what they expected? Well, in this long-term real-world review, I'm gonna focus on 5 killer features of the 15-inch MacBook Air, along with 3 major downsides that is not helping Apple with this machine and what went wrong. Starting out with the design, this thing is simple, it is elegant, and it is extremely thin and lightweight. I compared it to the previous Intel MacBook Pro with the large screen, and it's a lot lighter, thinner, it's better in every way, less expensive if you compare MSRPs, especially with inflation, and it is way faster. We don't have speaker grills on the sides, and the ports are a bit limited, but this is the laptop that so many people were asking for. You have a screen size that is not too small like the 13-inch and not too large like a 16-inch, which requires extra bulk. It is just right. Now, the second thing I want to talk about, major win for this thing, are the speakers. Not a lot of reviewers like to talk about this, but not everybody wants to wear headphones or ear pods. You can just sit there, lay there, watch a movie with somebody else, and the new 6-speaker system in here is great. It's a big upgrade compared to old MacBooks and Windows laptops. It is not as good as, say, a 16-inch that's a lot thicker, but most people will be absolutely floored with it. Now, above in that notch, we have a 1080p webcam, but of course, you don't have to settle for this. You can use my favorite webcam, the 4KC one, which I told you about last month, and I'm still loving it. This thing is built like a tank, and the image quality difference is massive, even in perfect lighting, but in realistic cases, it's mind-blowing, even compared to using the best iPhone, which also requires your phone to be locked up. Their software is easy to use, but very powerful, and you can use it with multiple devices. Thanks to Opal for sponsoring this video. Check it out using the link below or watch my full review video for more details. As for number 3, I need to talk about the performance. Now, yes, we have the same M2 chip that came out a year before this laptop in the 13-inch, but in the 15-inch model, it performs better. Now, the first reason is because the graphics are unbinned if you buy the 15-inch, and second, because the chassis is larger, even though it does throttle, it throttles less so you get about 6% more performance, but for long-term use, the throttle difference is even bigger because the full heat soak that you can get with the 13-inch after about a half hour, this laptop doesn't really get there to that point. Now, we made a full comparison against the 14-inch MacBook Pro, and in a lot of cases, the laptop's performance were very similar. And I would argue that for most people that are looking for a laptop, the performance is going to be way better than their previous one, and they will not care whatsoever. So unless you're doing some massive tough tests that are super long, maxing out the CPU and GPU, which in those cases a 14-inch MacBook Pro can be a lot more powerful, this thing is incredible and good enough even for our uses. Now that leads me into number 4 as far as pros, and that is the battery life. Everyone knows that Apple Silicon gets great battery life, and the 15-inch has a slightly larger battery than the 13-inch, but I compared it to my previous Intel MacBook Pro that is similar in size, and even though the battery is much smaller, when we were pushing the machines, the 15-inch Air lasted for 6 hours compared to 2, and that's pushing them hard. Now, for simple use, you get 15 hours of real-world battery life, which is incredible, and I know a lot of people will be upgrading to a 15-inch from an older Intel model, but what I didn't mention in that video is the low power mode that you can use that brings down the total peak wattage from about 23 or so down to 7.5, and a lot of times you're running at about 3 watts, and this will bring up your battery life up to 22 hours compared to 15 hours. And I can use the low power mode most of the time, because of how fast this works, you don't really feel it being slow, which is absolutely crazy for those that care about battery life. And for positive number 5, we need to talk about the price tag, because Apple surprised us when they said that you can buy one of these for $12.99. I was expecting $14.99 because they've never sold a large screen laptop at these price points. You've always had to spend way more money on a MacBook Pro. Now, of course, with that price tag, you get 8 gigs of RAM and you get an SSD that is half the speed of the 512 model. And so even though the price tag is a positive at that low end, I have to go into the negatives, with the first one also being the price tag, because if you upgrade this to 16 gigs of RAM and 512, and that is when the performance really starts to scream and it's an absolutely amazing laptop, well then you are getting close to a 14-inch MacBook Pro. And that's the way that Apple likes to do things. They want you to have this little step ladder where you kind of want to upgrade a little bit, and then at that point you might as well spend a little bit more money. Now with that, the 14-inch M1 Pros are also available for about $1,400 refurbished. So we actually did a video on that, and well, it is hard to beat that kind of value if you don't care about the design, the slimness, and the really great battery life. And that is already getting into number 2, which is the value. At $1,700 equipped like this, that's a lot of money for a laptop. And going back to the original kind of question, what went wrong? Why is Apple having poor sales, half of what they expected? Well, it's because they are still sticking to that 8 gig, 256 gig as base. Now, those SSDs barely cost Apple anything. It would literally cost them $5 to $10 to give you 512 at a base. The RAM is also not expensive, and I feel like if they would have gave us a bump up in either one of those, the sales would be a lot better. Now, issue number 3, and you guys could see how these issues aren't really related with the laptop itself, but that is the M3 chip. A lot of people are waiting for 3nm chips, and now we have confirmation that production is going on. We're going to see a launch in October, November time, and people have commented just saying, hey, I'm going to wait for the 3nm chip, because with a 3nm chip, the M3 in a laptop like this, those thermal limitations will pretty much be gone, and the performance will also go up at the same time. So this thing being released about a year after the M2 chip came out, well, it's kind of right there in the middle, where some people are like, you know what, I'll wait a little bit for that. Other people just don't want to buy a product that is going to be replaced in a way with, you know, better performance, better battery life, less throttling very shortly. So you guys let me know, does that matter to you guys that much down in the comments section below? And if you thought about buying one of these and you didn't, you were part of that 50% less purchasers getting one, why you decided to do that. Now, to wrap all of this up, I want to say that I absolutely love this machine. But in a lot of ways, it doesn't make sense, because in the low end, it's a great price, but you have limitations. And when you upgrade it, well, Apple itself has a lot of competition with a lot of great upgrades to this laptop if you don't mind a larger or heavier design. With that said, I have a full comparison right over there for you guys to watch to see all of the differences in the real world. Go ahead and check it out. But if you don't need the best of the best in terms of specs and performance, I would highly recommend it. This has been Max, and I'll see you in the next one.